Hi everyone. So, I, 27, male, recently lost my wife after a long battle with brain cancer. It was awful, and even though she'd been suffering for a long time, we all knew that this was eventually going to happen at some point, since for the last few months she hadn't been responding well to treatment. It's still a huge shock, and obviously it's difficult for me to imagine a life without her. It's just been 6 months since she passed on, and it's been very difficult for me. We were together for 8 years, married for five, and even though we didn't have any children, the two of us were each other's family. I personally am not very close with my parents, and her family is very overbearing, so both of us have issues with our families, which is why I said we were a family unto ourselves. When I lost her, I felt like I lost everything because we had basically watched each other grow up into real people since we were in college. And everybody who knew us, they knew how important she was to me. They knew that she was my world. And I'm just telling you guys all of this, emphasizing on how important she was to me so that you guys can understand my situation right now. Basically, what happened was that a couple of weeks ago, my in-laws reached out to me and told me that my wife's cousin, let's call her Kayla, is moving here for an internship and needed a place to crash for a couple of weeks. At first, I was not really up for it because although I had met Kayla a couple of times at family events that my wife went to, she and I were not exactly close friends, and it felt awkward to invite her to live with me. But my in-laws insisted, saying that she didn't know anybody else in the city and they had already promised her that I would let her live with me and guide her. Besides, the company was not going to provide accommodation for interns, so she needed to wait until she had a permanent job. And they did not want her to waste money on rent or hotels, so they had already made promises without asking me. I was really tired, so I didn't even fight with them. I just said that I was okay, as long as she cleaned up after herself and didn't bother me while I was working. So that was that. And 2 weeks back, Kayla showed up to live with me, and she was nice enough. The only problem was that she was a bit talkative, and given my current state of mind, that was the last thing I needed. Still, I tried to be polite to her, but then 2 days ago, she came back home from work and she told me that she really wanted to go out and get dinner outside and invited me to come along with her. I said that I was fine eating at home and that if she wanted to, she could go out. I wouldn't feel bad because I thought that she was only inviting me so that I wouldn't feel excluded or whatever. But instead, she started insisting that I come along with her, and I started to get annoyed because I kept telling her that I really did not want to go out. I had work the next day and I was exhausted, and she was just not going to take no for an answer. She kept telling me that I had to come out with her, that I had been going to work and coming back home and not doing anything else ever since she had arrived, and I had to start living my life, and she thought that she was being cute and helpful. But I didn't really agree. I mean, I had just lost my wife, the love of my life, 6 months ago. The fact that I was functioning well enough to go to work, to keep myself running, that was good enough for me. I did not feel the pressure to go out and start enjoying my life and pretending as if everything was fine. And she needed to understand and respect that. So I kind of snapped at her and told her that it was my business what I wanted to do, and she was here only because she needed a place to stay until her company could find her accommodation for her, not to teach me how to cope with my loss. So I would suggest she not get too involved in my life. Obviously, I immediately felt bad after snapping at her because I'm not the kind of person who generally loses my temper. But I was just having a very hard time getting her to leave me alone. And she started to look very upset and told me that the only reason she had even agreed to stay with me here was because my in-laws had told her that I needed company, and they thought that she would be the perfect person to bring me out of this rut that I was in. She started crying and told me that she was the one who had agreed to this whole setup and she was not going to take this kind of behavior from me because ever since she had come here, I have not been nice to her even for a second, and she was getting sick and tired of chasing after me now. When she was saying all these things, I couldn't even understand what she was referring to until I put two and two together and realized that this was something that my in-laws had set up with her because they apparently wanted me to move on and they wanted me to get something going with Kayla and eventually marry her. That was their plan. But that was going all wrong because even though Kayla had agreed with the hopes of getting through to me eventually, it had not been working well, and so far she had only managed to irritate me, and now she wanted to live on her own because clearly it wasn't going to be that easy to help me move on. And she was tired of feeling unwanted here. I was obviously shocked because I had no idea that any of this was happening. But from whatever she was saying and how upset she was, it was clear that it was real. I have no idea that my wife's family would do something like this, and I couldn't even understand why they would do this. Anyway, Kayla started packing her bags, and after she left, I decided to call my in-laws. And no, I did not even try to stop her from leaving because I didn't think that I wanted her around, and clearly she did not want to stay around either. I don't know if that was the right thing to have done or not because I'm getting a lot of heat from the family because of it, but at that point in time, that was the last thing on my mind. Anyway, after she left, I called up my in-laws and I asked them if they had really done something like this because Kayla had not held back while she was complaining and rambling, and for the first couple of minutes, my in-laws tried to tell me that she was confused. But when I confronted them with every little detail that Kayla had let on, they couldn't pretend not to know what I was talking about anymore. They told me that yes, they had indeed tried to set up a match between me and Kayla, and they had thought that Kayla might be able to bring me out of my shell because it was not healthy for me to keep grieving my wife anymore. On top of that, they thought that setting Kayla up with me would be good for me because at some point in time I would need to move on. And they thought that Kayla would be just my type, that she would be able to bring me out of my depression, and then eventually we might get married and have children and I would be able to complete the family that I never had been able to with my wife. And honestly, that was the most insensitive thing that they had said. I just hung up at that point in time because as soon as they mentioned having kids with Kayla, I knew exactly what all this was about. They just wanted a child that was connected to my parents somehow. That was it. Basically, they wanted our families to be connected as a status symbol, nothing else. And having a child would cement that thing. That was a huge part of the reason why, when my wife was alive, they had insisted that we have children as soon as possible, but eventually had to let that dream go after her diagnosis. Clearly, they did not give up that dream entirely, and they decided to use the cheap tactic of getting Kayla to marry me somehow and have children with me, completely disregarding the fact that I'm still grieving my wife and I'm in no condition to think about moving on and having children and expanding my family or whatever. It's just disappointing. And make no mistake, I know that this is exactly the reason, even though they will never admit it to themselves. Here's the thing, my parents are quite well established in their field. They are quite well accomplished and they run their own company. It's pretty well known. However, they never had time for me growing up, and no, unlike what people might imagine, that they might have spoiled me rotten to make up for it, they did not do that either. Most of the time they were indifferent to me and I had to pretty much raise myself. So yeah, for that reason, I don't really have a good relationship with them. We keep in touch though, because ultimately I do work for them and I'm hoping to take over the company once my parents retire. It was not by design, but because I grew up with them, I ended up developing an interest in their field and got a degree in it, and now I'm going to take over eventually. So for that reason, we are civil to one another, but apart from work, we have Nothing to talk about. My wife's family, though, they have always been very excited about the fact that I'm the only son of such big shot parents, and they've always embarrassed my wife with their behavior around my parents, and most of the time I had always found it amusing. But then my wife told me that they had been pressuring her to have a kid with me so that they could cement our relationship. They had a creepy and weird obsession with being related to my family so that they could boost their social status. And my wife found that disgusting, and she had complained to me about it many times. I never really took it that seriously, but now, after everything that happened with Kayla, I have to say, it is quite weird and creepy and disgusting. The fact that they were trying to pass it off as concern for me, that they were pretending that they were only doing this out of love for me, that just made it all the more problematic, because they really tried to convince me that they only wanted to help me here. They did not have any ulterior motives, but I didn't buy it. And that's why I did something which I'm not sure of. I went out of my way to make a post on Facebook about whatever had happened with me and Kayla and whatever my in-laws were trying to do, and I attacked a bunch of people from my wife's family just to make sure that my in-laws and their disgusting little stunt was exposed. Now, obviously, they are very upset about it. They think that I went too far, and they've been telling me to take that post down, but I don't really think that it's necessary. They keep playing the same card over and over again, that they just lost their daughter and it's been a difficult time for them too, so I don't need to go out of my way to make life even more tough for them, and that they get the message, they are not going to bother me anymore. But at the same time, they're not even pretending to accept their mistakes. They keep telling me that I have got it all wrong and that I'm twisting the whole situation with Kayla into something that was never meant to be, and that they were just trying to look out for me, and they can't believe that I would think so low of them. Like I said, I don't buy it though, and the only thing that's been bothering me a little bit is the fact that at the end of the day, it is true that they lost their daughter, and even though they did not have the best relationship, my wife did love her parents and vice versa. With my parents, I was never sure if they loved me or not. Even right now, they also want me to take the post down, but for totally different reasons. They only want me to take it down because they don't want family drama out in public, especially because it looks bad for them. So yeah, it's not out of concern for me or anything. They just don't want their reputation to be damaged. And of course, like I said, my in-laws want me to take it down because it looks bad for them, and also because they are also grieving my wife. And this is just all happening at a very bad time. So now I'm really confused because I don't want to be a bad guy here, but I feel like I already have become one by making that post at such a sensitive time for everyone. I don't know if I did the right thing or not. I just know that I was very angry. I was deeply upset by what they had tried to do, and that's why I ended up making that post. It came from a place of anger and spite, and now looking back, I feel like I might have made a rushed decision, and I probably should have thought it through more. I don't know how to feel about any of this anymore. What do you guys think? Am I the bad guy here? AITA for making a post exposing my late wife's family for a nasty little stunt that they tried to pull off? Update 1. So it has been a few days since my post here, and most of the people in the comments section agree with me that I'm not the one at fault here and that there is no need for me to take down the post. But in spite of that, I decided to take it down because at the end of the day, it was weighing on me. Not in the sense that it was making me feel guilty constantly or something like that, but only because it was creating a lot of drama. It had led to a lot of problems, and I did not need that kind of thing in my life anymore. It was something I had posted in the heat of the moment, and now the moment had passed, and I didn't want to deal with this crap anymore. I had enough on my plate without all of this as well, so yeah, I decided to take it down, and it's done now. My parents were obviously very happy that I took it down. They said I had done the right thing because they thought that I was taking it down to preserve the reputation of the family and everything, as if I care about that. And I really let them have it from me that I was going through a very tough time, and all they cared about was how the family was going to look because of all this. I mean, they had read the post. They knew what all of this was about instead of trying to contact me and support me. All they cared about was the reputation of the family. I told them I did not want them contacting me for any reason whatsoever unless it was about work, because right now I don't really want to hear from anyone. They told me I was being insensitive and dramatic, and I told them that they were just being insensitive as always. And I didn't want to hear from them, and that was it. It felt good to let it out because for so long I had just been repressing all of it because I did not think it was worth it to even talk to them about it since we had all buried it and hardly ever brought up how they had treated me as a child. We worked together, we had a cordial working relationship, and that was it. It worked for me. But some things, at some point in time, have to be said, and I'm glad I said it. I think they really needed to know that they had failed me as parents, and that's okay, because they can't go back in time and change it anymore. But neither can they expect anything from me. From now on, I'm just another regular employee, and that's it. That's our relationship. Update 2. Hey, so it's been a couple of days since my previous update, and today my mom showed up at my house. I was not very willing to let her in, but then I decided to do that anyway because I didn't want to be rude. As usual, she was quite cold and aloof, and honestly, every time I speak to my parents, I feel like I'm talking to co-workers or something. Literally, it's that impersonal with them. But I'm used to it, so today was no different. Anyway, she started telling me about how disappointed she was in my contact, and she said that it was really rude and dramatic of me to behave that way, so she can come by because she wanted to sort things out. She told me that she had even asked my father to come along, but he thought that I should be given some space to sort out my feelings on everything, because clearly I'm going through a lot right now. And he doesn't want to add to it if I don't want that. And honestly speaking, I think my dad's approach was much more sensible because clearly I had made it very obvious I did not want anything to do with them right now, apart from whatever our professional relationship required. And still, my mom thought that showing up and trying to make me feel like I was a bad guy was going to work or something. Anyway, the conversation with my mom did not really go well. I told her that I did not want to discuss any of this, and she didn't take it lightly. She said that for a long time, she and my father had both felt that I hold them responsible for something or the other, and they had never been able to figure out what exactly. But in our previous conversation, it had finally come to light. The fact that I thought that they had never cared for me, and she found it outrageous that I would accuse them of something like that. And they had all made sure that I had whatever I needed all through my childhood, and even through college. They had supported me. I told them that that was just funny, but apart from this, we never had a real relationship like other people do with their parents. And if they don't understand that, and if they really think that the relationship we have now is completely fine, that's on them. I don't have anything else to say to that. And my mother got very flustered and started telling me that I was being unreasonable and that they had done everything that was required of parents, and she couldn't imagine what I expected. So I told her that she and my father had only ever done the bare minimum, and if they thought that doing that made them good parents, good for them. I don't have anything else to say. But if she had come over here to argue with me and convince me that they were actually good parents, then she was fighting a losing battle because I was just not interested, because I knew what I had experienced as a child. I knew how I had been neglected emotionally, and for years I hadn't been able to give it a name, but now I know what it was. and I'm not going to pretend otherwise just to make them feel better. Thankfully, my mom is not one of those people who start shouting matches, so the whole thing was pretty quiet. It was annoying, that's for sure. It was frustrating to deal with, but it was all quiet at the very least. Anyway, we went around in circles for a while, and after that I told her that I really wanted her to leave. Clearly, she and I had very different opinions of what good parenting meant, and we were never going to be able to come to a conclusion that made sense to both of us. So she got up and she left, and she was quite huffy and angry. By the time she left, she was telling me that I was going to regret behaving like this one day. Because at the end of the day, she knew that as busy as they were, she and my dad had done their very best. And I told them that their best was not good enough for me. So they're just going to have to make peace with it like I have made peace with it. And honestly, I have never held the fact that they were busy against them. But the point was that even when they were at home, they were not truly there with me. They never expressed any interest in my life at all. They only pretended like they cared in front of relatives to keep up appearances, and only at public events would I actually feel like my parents were really my parents apart from that, whenever we were at home. I was as good as invisible to them, so yeah, I really wouldn't say that they were the ideal parents, and if they really think that they had done their best, which I no doubt think they do, then good for them. I'm not going to stop them from living in that delusional world. They can pat themselves on the back and believe whatever they want to, but I'm not required to believe the same thing because I know what I lived through. Anyway, I have ranted enough about them. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I feel better that I have got it off my chest now, but now I just want to relax and unwind and get this out of my head. Thank you to everybody who read all of it. Thank you to everybody who has commented on my post. It really means a lot to me. Update 3. Hey, so it's been a month and a half since my previous update, and I have not had any contact with my parents for that long. Of course, we do get together at work, but that's about it, and I'm quite happy with that arrangement, to be honest, because that's what I had wanted, and now I'm glad that that's what's happening. And I'll be very honest, and they don't seem very upset about this arrangement either. So I'm glad it's all worked out well for everyone. It's okay now. I know that they will never admit to the fact that they did not do their best as parents when I was growing up, and I'm fine with it now. Honestly, for a long time, maybe I had expected some sort of apology to come my way. Even until a couple of weeks ago, I was hoping that maybe they would acknowledge and accept their mistakes and try to make things better with me, but that never happened. And now I have given up hope as well. I guess it would have been nice for them to reach out and maybe we would have been able to reconcile or whatever. But that's obviously not something they want, and to be honest, I'm not sure if I want that either. Anyway, I have said what I had to. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Another thing that happened in the past couple of weeks was that Kayla's parents reached out to me to apologize for everything that had gone down. Her mom is my mother-in-law's elder sister, and I had always found her a lot more dignified than my mother-in-law herself. And they hadn't exactly done anything wrong. In fact, from the message that they sent me, it was clear that they didn't even know what was going on until I made that post. And after that, they were quite humiliated. They did not know how to reach out to me without making a fool out of themselves. But at the end of the day, they wanted to tell me that they didn't know what was going on because otherwise they might have been able to put an end to it. They told me that they were really sorry for everything that had happened and that they hoped that I would not hold it against them or even against Kayla because she was just being stupid and had been manipulated by my in-laws. I responded to them 2 days later telling them that it was all fine and that I was not holding it against them, though I would definitely advise Kayla to think things through before just doing it. I don't have anything against her parents. They're good people. They are good people, and I guess even Kayla just made a really stupid mistake. My main problem was with my in-laws. Because at the end of the day, they were the ones who had also lost a daughter, so they should have been able to understand what kind of pain I was in and been more sympathetic, instead of doing whatever they did. Anyway, that's beside the point though. It's all done. I'm over it. Update 4. So, hey everybody, it's been 2 years since my wife passed away, and a lot of things have changed in my life. For instance, my parents finally retired last year, and now I have taken over the company. And last year, right before they retired, they also made an attempt to reconcile with me. So, since then, we have been trying to repair our relationship, and it's not been easy, I'll tell you. But we are trying to be there for one another. I'm trying to be more forgiving, and they are trying to make more of an effort. And yeah, it's been okay for the most part. I still do miss my wife a lot, but I am trying to move on with my life. I'm not seeing anybody new, or neither am I interested in dating right now. But I am going back to the things I used to love earlier. Like I'm traveling again, and I've even adopted a pet dog, something we always planned on doing together, but never got the opportunity to do because everything just happened way too quickly. But yeah, I have a dog now, and maybe in future I'll even be open to the possibility of loving somebody again. But for now, I'm perfectly content with my life as it is. I wish the two of us could have had a little more time together, and I guess I'm never going to stop wishing for that, no matter what happens. But this is not too bad either, and I'm sure that she will be glad that I'm coping with my life and trying to live to the fullest for her sake. And I really do hope I'm doing her proud. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.